Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the InnerViews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down how Martin Zubimendi played a key role in Arsenal's narrow 1-0 win over Manchester United. So when we look at the board briefly, what we end up seeing is that United were in a 3-4-3 and Arsenal started in a 4-3-3. Arsenal did a good job of pressing throughout the game, and yes, it wasn't consistent, but the base template of their press did ensure that United couldn't build out of the back easily. Now, they adjusted their press due to how United were looking to build up, where you ended up seeing De Ligt shifting in towards the midfield just a bit higher of Euro and Shaw. And from there, you'd see Odegaard looking to close down De Ligt. Gyökeres and Saka would deal with Shaw and Euro. And then in that midfield zone, it'd be Rice stepping towards Casemiro and Zubimendi stepping towards Bruno. Martinelli would deal with one wing back and White would deal with the other. And that would leave Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori against the United front three. There were many scenarios throughout that game where you witnessed this Arsenal press look to close down United, and they had issues playing out of the back. And we did see some variations from United that looked to disrupt Arsenal, but Arsenal did a very good job of ensuring that they couldn't build from that zone. Whether it be Bruno dropping a bit deeper and then Odegaard picking him up, and you'd see Rice and Zubimendi dealing with De Ligt and Casemiro. In certain scenarios out in the wider zones, you could see one of the United attacking players dropping off deeper, and then the wing backs inverting in towards the midfield zone, so the Arsenal fullbacks would have to pick them up. And there was one example in particular where you ended up seeing United looking to build from the back, and it was Bruno who was free because Zubimendi didn't step, and that forced Gabriel to step in towards the midfield zone to close down Bruno because Zubimendi had to track Mount's movement out towards the touchline. And when United's wing back looked to play around the white press, you end up seeing Saliba stepping in towards Cunha to win possession. So in many ways, when we focus on Zubimendi, his role was closing down Bruno, but there were scenarios where you ended up witnessing any of the front three dropping in towards those midfield zones, and that's where you would have to be wary of their presence as they look to receive the ball freely to break in transition. Focus on Zubimendi solely. Yes, this wasn't the perfect game from him, but he was the best midfielder on the pitch for Arsenal and arguably one of their better players, and we witnessed this in many aspects. In terms of Arsenal's build-up, you'd witness him dropping ahead of the Arsenal backline and being able to pick up the ball and bypass the United front three and at times their midfield to help Arsenal push forward. Whether it be Calafiori or White inverting in towards that midfield zone to find them in pockets of space to push Arsenal forward, Zubimendi was capable of doing that. And he was capable of finding Odegaard in pockets of space to receive the ball and then help Arsenal progress in towards the final third. Ultimately, this was key for Arsenal in terms of getting in towards United's third, but the issue that they encountered is that once Zubimendi found his teammates in these areas, it was simply the execution in the final third that let Arsenal down. There are scenarios where it'd be Odegaard receiving the ball in pockets of space and breaking in transition and simply failing to execute, him playing in Gyökeres and Gyökeres making a poor decision in the final third or being unable to execute in 1v1s, or simply finding Odegaard in pockets of space and then him being unable to pick out his teammates from deeper positions. From a defensive aspect, we witnessed different variations as to how Zubimendi was able to impact the game, whether it be him anticipating passes in towards the midfield zone and stepping in to apply pressure, and from there he was able to help Arsenal turn defense into attack because he'd win the ball and then allow his teammates to play in attacking players in transition. However, similar to when he was playing passes into teammates, those attacking players failed to execute in the final third. If that wasn't the case, he was winning loose balls in midfield, carrying it beyond pressure, and then playing in his teammates in the final third to get into good positions. And on top of that, he was just simply doing a good tracking job when runners were breaking in towards advanced positions beyond him. He would follow markers breaking in towards the final third, and when passes were played out in towards wider areas, he would track those passes and anticipate them and step in to make challenges, or simply disrupt the attack by stepping in towards United players checking in towards the ball or making runs in beyond him. And from there, he was willing to commit fouls to halt the United attack, whether it be in and around his penalty area or in the middle third. You can see Bruno running off his marker to exploit the space that Cunha created by dragging out a center back, and it's Zubimendi tracking him towards the 18-yard box and fouling him in that zone to prevent him from breaking free on goal. If you look to an example, it's Shaw bypassing Saka and Zubimendi for the United wing-back inverting, and when he receives the ball, he looks to bypass both Arsenal players, slide the ball out towards Mount, and then run off those two two Arsenal players to exploit the space behind White. Mount attempts to create the 2v1, but look at Zubimendi tracking that movement, and when Mount plays the ball around White, Zubimendi follows the United wingback in towards that zone. He anticipates the United wingback looking to cut back on towards a stronger foot, and he steps in to make a challenge to help halt that United attack. And then if you look to another example, it's the United wingback again. He receives the ball and pulls out White. Zubimendi looks to block off the pass in towards Mount running off him, but the wingback cuts across White, plays the ball into Cunha and bypasses Rice, but focus on Zubimendi recovering his positioning, and then he easily steps in towards Cunha, who has a loose touch, and that helps White regain possession, and from there Arsenal can break forward. So as you can see, while this wasn't a perfect Arsenal performance on the day, Martin Zubimendi's influence in that midfield zone from an attacking and defensive aspect played a key factor in Mikel Arteta's men starting the season on a good note.